Man, I can't believe I'm making this video. It's almost 2 in the morning, but hey, I need a little bit of stress reducing after just doing my Pokemon Fire Red game. So anyways, here is week 11, I think it is, of the 2019 DCFL season. Or I mean to say week 12, as here's the updated standings right now, as I see, looking at that's how I knew it was week 12. In the Eastern Conference, New York leads at 8-3, followed by Charlotte 7-4, Baltimore 7-4, and then of course you have Pittsburgh at 5-6, Jacksonville 4-7, and Philadelphia last place, the worst team in the league, and the only team eliminated from the playoffs right now at 1-10. Meanwhile, in the Western Conference, the Indianapolis Rapid Stallions lead, finally suffering their first loss to prevent 0-16, with Chicago second at 10-9-2, and then Phoenix third place at 5-6, followed by Oakland 5-6, LA at 3-8, and last place is Seattle at 2-9. Bunch of teams can make playoff berths, and a bunch of teams can be eliminated from the playoffs depending on what happens. So we're gonna find out as here we go. Time to get week 12 underway. So we start off week 12 with the Chicago Staleys visiting my Baltimore Charm, as Chicago has the longest win streak in the league right now after they just beat Indianapolis last week, as they've won 7 in a row now, their first win season, on the verge of making a playoff berth this week. Meanwhile, my Charm finally ended the 3-game losing streak, shutting out New York last week. Need to get a win here to keep up in that 3-way tie almost for that spot in division crown, as Chicago's trying to win to keep up with Indianapolis after they just beat them last week. And Chicago would win it in an ugly defensive struggle, 23-10, as both defenses showed up. In total, there were 7 turnovers. Actually, 8 turnovers now I look at, but to make matters worse, 6 of them were on me. My team did 6 turnovers, as the number 1 defense in the league, Chicago, showed why they were the number 1 defense. Absolutely dominant performance this day, as they're now 10-2. And as long as they get either an Oakland or Phoenix loss, they can get to the playoffs for this week. But for right now, they're not in yet. As my Charm, yikes, they've lost 4 of their last 5 games. And with Pittsburgh and Jacksonville starting to make like a sudden rise, I'm a little bit nervous. Oh, let me kill you. I am really nervous right now. Next up on the list is the Charlotte Bobcats visiting the LA Mean Green Machines, as Charlotte, thanks to my loss, has a chance now to take the lead in the division with a win and a New York loss, as they lost last time out, I think it was. Meanwhile, LA, after 3 and 4, they've now lost 4 in a row and are on the verge of getting eliminated depending on what happens, as they need to win to keep up in that really weak division outside of Indianapolis and Chicago. And Charlotte would destroy LA 44-9, as believe it or not, this was actually a defensive struggle. LA actually got outgained Charlotte by 4 yards, as both teams barely even got 300 yards of offense. But what killed LA in this game is they had 6 turnovers, 4 forced fumbles, and all of them recovered for Charlotte, and 2 interceptions too, plus suffering 5 sacks, as it was an absolute rout by Charlotte as they destroyed LA, giving LA their first ever losing season, as Charlotte now has their first non-losing season ever, as they now got that second place secured right now. And of course, unfortunately for LA, they're on the verge of getting eliminated, but thankfully they could still stay in for the week. And then it's the Seattle Tenyo visiting the Jacksonville Scouts, as Seattle unfortunately suffered their first losing season, on the verge of getting eliminated. Meanwhile, Jacksonville, after starting off 0-6, they've now won 4, and they've won their last 4 out of their last 5 games and looking absolutely incredible. Could they destroy Seattle like they did last year and get back into the playoff mix? They would destroy Seattle 57-7 in a complete, utter rout! And this is like the worst performance ever. Even the Baltimore loss earlier today, even the LA loss does not comprehend this. Seattle had 132 yards total to Jacksonville's 434, and they had 4 turnovers, and 2 of them resulted in touchdowns from Seattle. Even though they got 3 fumbles themselves, their offense just was completely and utterly shredded by Jacksonville, as Jacksonville now won 4 in a row now. Unbelievable, as they're making and surging to make this comeback. And for Seattle, if Phoenix wins this week, they are officially eliminated from the playoffs. But at 2-10, they still technically are in. They just can't have Phoenix win this week. After that, we take down to Indianapolis for a huge matchup as this the number 1 teams in both conferences, as the New York Gangsters visit the Indianapolis Rapid Stallions, as New York needs a win here to keep up with Charlotte. If a loss, they'll be in second place again to get their first win season. Meanwhile, Indianapolis suffered their first loss of the season. The no longer can go 0-16. Will they destroy the number 1 team in the Eastern Conference for revenge? And Indianapolis would win at 49-34. And with this win, Indianapolis officially clinches a playoff berth for the 2nd year in a row. They still can't clinch the division yet, though, because of Chicago. But they are in the playoffs, as this was an offensive shootout. Indianapolis put up 500 yards of offense, and New York put up over 460 yards. But New York's defense actually shut down Indianapolis pretty good, too, as well. They forced 4 fumbles, recovered 1 of them, and they got a defensive touchdown in the mix, too. But in the end, despite the pressure they put on Indianapolis' offense, it still wasn't enough to stop the 15-point loss that they suffered. Wow. And, of course, with this win, not only did New York now lose 2 in a row, but Charlotte now once again is number 1 seed in that conference. It's incredible when Baltimore, New York, even Jacksonville now even Jacksonville's starting to look better than Charlotte, yet Charlotte's still leading the division because of all these tiebreakers. And then we go out to Pittsburgh as the Oakland Pillagers visit the Pittsburgh Blitz, as Oakland has suffered, I think, 2 losses in a row now. Nothing's gone really right for them after that 3-1 start. Meanwhile, Pittsburgh, after that 2-6 start, now won 3 in a row and trying to get right back into the mix of the playoff race, as this is a crucial win for Oakland. They need this win, and so does Pittsburgh. And Pittsburgh would win at 38-24 to win 4 in a row now, as they are right back at 500, as they put up 380 yards of offense. Oakland could only get 263 yards, as this was a defensive game. Oakland had 3 sacks, 3 forced fumbles, and recovered 2 of them. But Pittsburgh had 4 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, and recovered 1 of them, as Oakland just could not keep up. And with this loss, it's officially now the Chicago Staleys themselves have now clinched up their first ever playoff berth. So we now got 2 of the 6 teams in the playoffs, but we still got 4 more up for grabs. And I also forgot to mention, too, Indianapolis secured himself at least the number 2 seed. They're going to have a home playoff game. It's just whether or not they're going to be hosting the conference or it will be Chicago. And then we get to the final game of the week as the Philadelphia Sonics visits the Phoenix Devils, as Philadelphia still maintains their losing record. They have lost 9 in a row now, I think it is, as they are eliminated from the playoffs. Meanwhile, Phoenix needs a win here. Now they have a chance to get a 1-game lead on Oakland, get back to 500. They desperately need this win really badly to keep up in that playoff race. And Phoenix would get the victory 41-28, as it was an offensive game. Philadelphia actually got more yards than Phoenix did by just a little bit, but Phoenix's defense showed up. 2 sacks, 2 interceptions, and a forced fumble, and 2 defensive touchdowns, which, by the way, if you take those 2 defensive touchdowns away, guess what? Philadelphia wins by a point. And who knows, those 2 points could have made 2 interceptions could have gave Philadelphia points. So Philadelphia actually had a shot to win this if they didn't stop shooting themselves in the foot offensively along with their shitty defense, as they are now continuing to bleed, as they're now 1-11. And of course, with this win, as I mentioned earlier, now Seattle is officially eliminated from the playoffs. So now here we go. Here's the updated standings after week 12. As you see, Indianapolis and Chicago are officially in the playoffs, and Seattle is now officially eliminated too, along with Philadelphia. In the Eastern Conference, Charlotte now leads at 8-4, and New York at 8-4, and my Baltimore Charm at 7-5. In the Western Conference, Indianapolis leads 11-1, then Chicago 10-2, and then Phoenix is third at 6-6. And there is a playoff elimination scenario, and that's the LA Mean Green Machines. If they lose and Phoenix wins, they are officially eliminated from the playoffs. But other than that, everyone still is in the playoff race regardless of what happens. And there's no playoff clinching scenarios this week either. No one, even in the Eastern Conference, can get in yet. So now we take a look at the schedule for Week 13, as we got a lot of big games coming up. As first off will be Jacksonville at Baltimore. We desperately need that game. And another big one in the Eastern Conference as Pittsburgh visits Charlotte, and then New York visiting Philadelphia. And then we go to the Western Conference, which will be Indianapolis visiting LA, Oakland at Seattle, and finishing off with a big one, Phoenix at Chicago. Well, we're down to our final 4 weeks, and 2 teams are eliminated, 2 teams are in the playoffs. We still got 4 spots left up for grabs. Both divisions are still up for grabs, and there's still 8 teams fighting for those last 4 spots. No one can clinch this next week, like I said, but who will be in position in week 14 to find out who will clinch those playoff spots? We're going to be finding out, so tune in next week for week 13 of the 2019 DCFL season, and then we'll find out for sure who's going to be in position to finally get those last 4 playoff spots. See you guys then.